Now we'll enter into blockchain basics. In the current situation, the blockchain is the most promising technology, and people do believe that as a part of its game-changing technology, it's going to offer many more things in future. It's going to simplify the life of people, and it's going to change the national and the international economy also. Since it is the most promising one, it's the most controversial one also. And I have attended many seminars and workshops. I have seen many people, after the end of the seminar, they are discussing what the blockchain is all about. This actually inspired me to give a basic definition. I thought that it's really a challenge one to define blockchain through a slide. I have attempted to describe blockchain within 100 words, which I will present in the next part of the session. Here, I'm going to present blockchain, the nutshell of blockchain technology, through a single slide. I'm going to explain it now. This lady A, she is maintaining a file of transaction in her PC. The only condition is that whenever she is making any transaction of any amount, an email will go to B and C. It will be notified to them. And she is maintaining a ledger of transactions. Now, when the lady A is making a transaction, simultaneously B and C is getting an email about the information of transaction. While receiving this information, B and C will check whether A can really afford to make this transaction. They will play the role of minors and will check her affordability to make the transaction with various mathematics and logic. This is called proof of work. Once they establish the logic, they will share within the network so that a consensus can be reached. If all of them agree to allow her to make the transaction, it means the consensus has been reached, and the lady can make the transaction. All these things are happening within the network, and they all have participated into this distributed network. So this was my attempt to define blockchain basics through a single slide. As I said earlier, that blockchain is the most promising and the upcoming technology. What the blockchain is all about. If you see this figure, it is showing several blocks tied through a chain. That is the meaning of blockchain. It's basically a digital timestamp like notary. Its invention is even more controversial. People do believe that it was invented by Satoshi Nakamoto. But Satoshi Nakamoto has clearly denied, rather, this Dorian Nakamoto is believed to be the Satoshi Nakamoto who has denied the invention of this Bitcoin. So as of now, Bitcoin has been coined by Satoshi Nakamoto, but who the Satoshi Nakamoto actually is, people are yet to discover that. It was invented or it was coined in 2009. It's basically a distributed ledger. What the block actually consists? It consists data, it consists hash, and it consists hash of previous block. Data is the content, hash is the digital footprint of the data. It's a random number. And hash of previous block is the reference of previous block so that chain can be maintained. In any Bitcoin transaction, 3 parameters are very important. Who is making the transaction? Here the lady is making the transaction. She is the sender. The gentleman is receiving the transaction. He is the receiver, and the amount of transaction. It's like any other conventional form of transaction. So hash, as I shared earlier, that hash is a random number, which is the digital footprint of data. Hash of previous block, it creates the chain, it's maintaining the chain. Then how are they connected? You will find that this hash value is referred by the next one, this hash value is referred by the next one, so that the chain can be formed. This is the first block has no previous reference because it's starting the chain, and it's called the genesis block. As I said earlier, this is the genesis block, and other hashes are being referred by the next one. Now, what will happen in case there is something happening with one of the block? Here, something has happened with block number 2. Its data has changed, so the hash value has changed. And once the hash value has changed, this reference, it has been broken because the earlier reference is no more valid there. Now this block has a different reference, and this has not been referred by this by the next one. So the broken chain has been indicated by the change in color. Now, can we return back to the original one, or we cannot? We cannot accept this change. No, we can accept this change, but for that we need to do a little work, and which is called the proof of work. So once some transaction has happened with block number 2, then the miners will do this verification whether this transaction can really be afforded by block 2. If it has been agreed by all within the network, which is called P2P network or the distributed network, then the consensus will be reached, and the changes would be noted and would be recorded. This means the consensus has been reached by all the participants, all the participating nodes of the distributed network or the P2P network. We'll see these smart contracts involving all the stakeholders of this distributed or P2P network who are participating into this blockchain technology in the later part of this session or in the later part of the first day program. There are many potential areas where blockchain can be applied, and as I have shared earlier, then it's a game changer, and it is expected that it will change the scenario in many areas. It will reduce the discomfort, and it has many expectations in the fields. Some of the fields where blockchain is finding potential usage is medical records, for e-notary, collecting taxes, and in other places. Before we conclude this session, we'll have a quick review of this session. Let's go to that.
Many people think of blockchain as the technology that powers Bitcoin. While this was its original purpose, blockchain is capable of so much more. Despite the sound of the word, there's not just one blockchain. Blockchain is shorthand for a whole suite of distributed ledger technologies that can be programmed to record and track anything of value, from financial transactions to medical records or even land titles. You might be thinking, we already have processes in place to track data. What's so special about blockchain? Let's break down the reasons why blockchain technology stands to revolutionize the way we interact with each other. Reason number 1, the way it tracks and stores data. Blockchain stores information in batches called blocks that are linked together in a chronological fashion to form a continuous line, metaphorically, a chain of blocks. If you make a change to the information recorded in a particular block, you don't rewrite it. Instead, the change is stored in a new block showing that X changed to Y at a particular date and time. Sound familiar? That's because blockchain is based on the centuries-old method of the general financial ledger. It's a non-destructive way to track data changes over time. Here's one example. Let's say there was a dispute between Anne and her brother Steve over who owns a piece of land that's been in the family for years. Because blockchain technology uses the ledger method, there is an entry in the ledger showing that Adam first owned the property in 1900. When Adam sold the property to Dave in 1930, a new entry was made in the ledger, and so on. Every change of ownership of this property is represented by a new entry in the ledger, right up until Anne bought it from their father in 2007. Anne is the current owner, and we can see that history in the ledger. Now, here's where things get really interesting. Unlike the age-old ledger method, originally a book, then a database file stored on a single system, blockchain was designed to be decentralized and distributed across a large network of computers. This decentralizing of information reduces the ability for data tampering and brings us to the second factor that makes blockchain unique. It creates trust in the data. Before a block can be added to the chain, a few things have to happen. First, a cryptographic puzzle must be solved, thus creating the block. The computer that solves the puzzle shares the solution to all of the other computers on the network. This is called proof of work. The network will then verify this proof of work, and if correct, the block will be added to the chain. The combination of these complex math puzzles and verification by many computers ensures that we can trust each and every block on the chain. Because the network does the trust building for us, we now have the opportunity to interact directly with our data in real time. And that brings us to the third reason blockchain technology is such a game changer: no more intermediaries. Currently, when doing business with one another, we don't show the other person our financial or business records. Instead, we rely on trusted intermediaries, such as a bank or lawyer, to view our records and keep that information confidential. These intermediaries build trust between the parties and are able to verify, for example, that, yes, Anne is the rightful owner of this land. This approach limits exposure and risk, but also adds another step to the exchange, which means more time and money spent. If Anne's land title information was stored in a blockchain, she could cut out the middleman, her lawyer, who would ordinarily confirm her information with Steve. As we now know, all blocks added to the chain have been verified to be true and can't be tampered with, so Anne can simply show Steve her land title information secured on the blockchain. Anne would save considerable time and money by cutting out the middleman. This type of trusted peer-to-peer interaction with our data can revolutionize the way we access, verify, and transact with one another. And because blockchain is a type of technology and not a single network, it can be implemented in many different ways. Some blockchains can be completely public and open to everyone to view and access. Others can be closed to a select group of authorized users, such as your company, a group of banks, or government agencies. And there are hybrid public-private blockchains too. In some, those with private access can see all the data, while the public can see only selections. In others, everyone can see all the data, but only some people have access to add new data. A government, for example, could use a hybrid system to record the boundaries of Anne's property and the fact that she owns it while keeping her personal information private. Or it could allow everyone to view property records but reserve to itself the exclusive right to update them. It is the combination of all these factors, decentralizing of the data, building trust in the data, and allowing us to interact directly with one another and the data, that gives blockchain technology the potential to underpin many of the ways we interact with one another. But, much like the rise of the Internet, this technology will bring with it all kinds of complex policy questions around governance, international law, security, and economics. Here at the Center for International...
We'll end this session now. We'll meet you very soon in the next session. Till then, goodbye.